Hey guys, Pastor Kevin checking in, taking a few minutes away from uh, my studies in my office to come out here and sit on the back porch real quick and um, just give you a word of encouragement for your Tuesday. And yesterday, um, I gave you a verse out of Isaiah that dealt with fear and this morning, or just a few moments ago, I was just reading through some Psalms. Um, I come across Psalms chapter 56, and it kind of goes goes along with the same theme regarding the word fear as yesterday. But just let me ask you this question: when you are afraid, who do you put your trust in? Who do you put your trust in when you're overcome with fear? Um, David wrote this in verse 3. He says, "When I am afraid," and a couple things stand out. He says when. He doesn't say if I'm afraid, but when I'm afraid, and I think that's key because that word when, the implication is it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. There's going to be a time in your life that you're going to face fearful circumstances where fear and dread and apprehension um, is going to be in your face. You're going to be just confronted with it. And so the question is, what do you do then? Let me give you a little bit of context to where David's coming from. He is the context is 1 Samuel chapter 21 and 22, and this is a time in his life where David is fleeing from the first king of Israel, whose name is Saul, and Saul is out to kill David. There's been a spirit of jealousy on Saul, and he knows essentially that his reign as king has come to an end, and that God has chosen David to be the next king. So Saul's looking to take David's life, and David is having to flee into the wilderness, and he's having to run from cave to cave, and he's making his way to a place called Gath as he's fleeing Saul and the armies of Saul. And so somewhere along the way he wrote this psalm, and he says, when I am afraid. When I'm afraid. I mean, there's a man trying to take his life. I imagine he's pretty fearful. I imagine there's a lot of people that's pretty fearful with their circumstance and the situation that's going on now in our world, in our globe. Some of you probably have financial fears, health fears, maybe medication fears. Maybe you're worried about how to get your medicines, maybe your groceries, maybe that's a fear for you. Life goes on, right? Even though we got this whole virus thing, life continues. And so I'm sure there's a whole list of things that we could go through that people could express that they're afraid of. And part of it is fear of the unknown. That's probably one of the biggest things for most people, is that you just don't know what is coming down the pipe, so to speak. And so you don't know what to expect. Well, I'm sure David didn't. In some regards. He didn't know how this thing was going to turn out. He knew he was going to be the next king of Israel. God had already spoken to David about that through the prophet Samuel, but he didn't know what he was going to have to go through for all this, and so it's just overwhelming fear, and it can paralyze you. But I want you to notice what. Sorry, the wind's blowing. After he said, when I'm afraid, remember, it's not a matter of if you become afraid, it's just a matter of when fear comes and comes against you. But what do you do? What do you do? What did David do as he's fleeing Saul and he's making his way to Gath? What do you do during all this coronavirus stuff? What do you do? Here's what David did. He says, I put my trust in you. He says, when I'm afraid, when I'm facing terror or dread of any kind, he says, my confidence is in God. My trust is in God. And I just want to encourage you to do the same thing. If you're having any fear of any kind because of this coronavirus, you're fearful because you don't know what's going to come of all this. You're fearful because of your health, or whatever the case may be. What I want to encourage you to do is to do the very same thing that David did, and that's to put your trust in God. Look, there's no better person or being in the universe to put your confidence in. I mean, you think about everything that God has done, and He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, okay? Just by speaking it. He spoke literally creation into existence. And if He can do that, if He created me and you in His image from the dust of the ground, the dirt of the ground, for His glory, He can cause His only Son, Jesus, to be born of a virgin, then only to die on a cross, then only to be buried for 3 days, and then to raise Him from the grave, then is there really anything that God cannot do? And the answer to that question is no. God can do all things and anything. Everything is possible for Him. So you can trust God. Put your confidence in God. If you're afraid, put your trust in Him. Love you guys. Hope you guys are all having a great Tuesday. Don't forget that we have Bible study tomorrow night. We'll go live from our Northeast Church Facebook page at 7 o'clock. God bless.